Mm, Hello, and welcome to another session of Lessons from My Mother. This is lesson number uh, 18. And today's lesson is very important, and it's something that my mother has taught us from a very young age. Uh, but I would make the argument that all mothers have taught this lesson to their children, all fathers have taught it. Every family member teaches this lesson to the child, or used to teach this to the child, because as we know from today's society, things are really changing, aren't they? When I was younger, I can't remember ever talking back to my parents. I can't remember. I can't remember saying, no, you're wrong, no, you're this, no, you're that. Um, Physical violence was always one danger, and many people know my position on physical violence. I condone it. I'm not opposed to it. Uh, I know it upsets the sensibilities of my liberal friends, but so do many other things, and we don't have to agree on it. I think you're fundamentally wrong in the liberal position when it comes to violence and pain and punishment. I think you're fundamentally wrong. But we're not going to explore that today. Today, though, but I will come back to it. I will come back to it because that's a conversation I've had with a few friends, um, where it starts with them being indignant. How could you ever hit a child? Oh my God! It starts from there, and then through calm conversation from my side, their indignation, sorry, slowly trickles down, and it starts becoming on an even keel where I make my points, to the point that many of them have said, well, yes, in certain scenarios, I guess you're right. And I said, yes, of course I'm right, because I've thought about it, and I've lived through it, and I've benefited from it. So it doesn't mean that every child has to be hit all the time, but there has to be a possibility of it. People who rule out the possibility are idiots. And I've debated that multiple times on public stage. But that's not the lesson for today. Today's lesson is this, about respecting your elders. But whoever wants to have that conversation with me, we can have it whenever it's necessary. That's not a problem. So everyone watches TV. If not everyone, then at least most people watch TV. Um, and while you're watching TV, um, you are sprawled on the couch with your feet apart and your legs, and you're just relaxed in your manner of watching TV. And your father walks into the room, and your father says, "What are you watching?" And you lay spread on the sofa and say, "I'm watching this cartoon." And your father said, "Okay, maybe I'll sit with you, maybe I won't." And then your father leaves. If you see nothing wrong with this scenario, then allow me to change your mind. We were taught that if an elderly person enters the room and you're sprawled out on the couch, you straighten yourself up. You sit up straight. If your legs are sprawled, you pull them back in. That you sit with proper decorum. I know that's a word that a lot of people have issue with. Decorum, who's decorum, why decorum? Let's put that aside for now. It's the foundational sign of respect that when an elder person enters, you straighten yourself up, alert, respectful, and exhibiting that your presence deserves me to sit up straight out of respect. We do that. We do that, like in our family. All the sons do that. Their kids do that. But I know people who don't do that, and they lay with their feet spread around, and their parents come or their grandparents come, and they don't sit up. And I'm like, "What are you doing? Why don't you sit up?" They're like, when they did, I don't care. I was like, you don't care. To get respect, you have to give respect, and it's a foundational character of human behavior to give respect without a solid reason. Like if I said to you, you should respect the elders because they're old, does that convince you? For people who need to be convinced, they don't need a reason, like, oh, they're old, therefore you should respect them. But people who don't want to be convinced, no reason is enough. I could say to you, this man fought in World War II. Because of him, we have a free country. Therefore, you should respect him. You're going to find faults in that. This man built our roads. This man worked on infrastructure. So the car that you drive so freely drives so freely because of the road that he built. But it wouldn't be enough. This lady slaved in the kitchen, in the house, at her job, so that you could have your parents could have a warm meal, or you could have a warm meal, so you can go to school and study and not slave away like her. She's done all that, therefore you should respect her. You still may not, because you still may find loopholes. So I'm not going down the argument of convincing you why it is important to respect your elders. What I am saying to you is that it speaks to particular character traits which people are losing every single day: dignity, charity, compassion, um, and understanding of others' strength and your strength is something that was embedded in all societies, Western and Eastern, global North and global South, particularly Eastern and global South. The collectivist societies had that and still have that. You speak to a Chinese person, an Indian person, Pakistani, Turkish, you speak to them about getting bad grades, and you'll see, oh no, my mother would have killed me. My father would have beaten me with this. I was speaking to a South American friend of mine. She's from Colombia, a good friend of mine, and she was telling me about slippers, how mothers throw slippers. And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, if a mom's pissed off, she'd throw a slipper. And I was like, yep, my mom's done the same. It worked. Got the job done. Yep, I have received many a slippers in my time. And so that thing was incredibly embedded in society of understanding your strengths, uh, maintaining dignity, giving charity, developing compassion, empathy, and so forth. Because of westernized media or because of post-structuralism or whatever is happening in the world today, we've kind of separated those things. So we say, oh, this is empathy, and this is sympathy, and this is respect, and they're not connected to each other. I'm here to tell you that's a load of bullshit, because they are connected to each other. They're all connected to each other. And it's incredibly important to understand that. So I've been in Montreal for over 2 years now, and I've seen elderly people enter the subway and nobody gets up for them. I've seen elderly people enter the bus and nobody stands up for them. Elderly, I mean 70 plus. You could tell. You could tell by the way they walk. You could tell by their faces, by their wrinkles, by their hair. You could tell by the way the clothes they wear, the things that they carry. You can tell, oh, this person is post-retirement. Nobody stands up for them. Nobody stands up for them. So I always stand up for them and I tap them because my French isn't the best. So I tap them. I was like, please take my seat. Many a times they say, no, no, no. I was like, no, no, please. And I insist. I'm like, you have to sit. I can't sit if you're standing. I can't sit if you're standing. Please take a seat. And they always sit down. You insist once, they all sit down. It's very rare where they're like, no, I will not sit. No, I'm going to stay standing. 99.9% of the time, you insist once and they sit down. And they're grateful, but their grace is unnecessary. What matters is realizing what you did. You gave up your comfort for values that are higher than your own selfish personal gain. Dignity, compassion, respect, charity, and so forth. That is what it touches upon. In Turkey, Thankfully, this is still the case. Um, and I love what I love about Turkey uh, is that the elderly expect it from you. So if you don't do it, they tell you off. So I remember I've traveled in many buses and minibuses in Turkey, and I was sitting in a minibus with a friend of mine. She's a good friend of mine, um, and I saw an elderly lady. She may be in her 50s. She would have children my age, and she was wearing a headscarf and she was wobbling. She was When you get older, it's hard to walk, so she was wobbling up the bus, and I saw her, and I was like, I started to stand up, and my friend was like, "No, no, no, keep sitting." I was like, "You crazy?" And I stood up, and the lady didn't even. There was no hesitation. She kept walking. She knew I would stand up. She came and she sat down, and she's like, tapped me on the arm. She's like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Thank you, thank you so much. Allow me to offer my seat to you. Thank you for giving me the pleasure of allowing my seat to you." Um, so that used to happen, and it happened all the time. They would get on the bus, and men particularly, but also some women would start standing up for the elderly people, and they wouldn't waste a second. They were like, "Yeah, yeah, thanks, thanks. I built this road. I built this bus. Thank you for recognizing." It was fantastic. I didn't feel demeaned. I didn't feel neglected. I didn't feel this person was showing me up. What I felt was love, charity, compassion, empathy, respect. I felt all that respect for them. There have been people who've insisted that I sit down because they're about to leave. There have been people who say, "No, no, just take a seat. You look tired." But every time I insist, they're like, "Okay, thank you so much." Kindness shouldn't come at a cost. And here, somebody would say to me, "Oh, then why are we being kind only to the elderly?" I've given my reasoning before. If you're not going to be convinced, you will find flaws in any reason. Respecting your elders does not mean you don't respect people your own age. This lesson is about respecting your elders. A further a further tangent of this is, for example, disagreeing with your elders. So right around the time where we're 10, 11 years old, we start thinking, "Oh, I know everything about the world. I am very fashion. I know this, I know that." I was one of them. I was one of those people, absolutely. Um, Even more so because I'm a rebel by nature. So I would say, "Oh, yeah, my mum doesn't know. My dad doesn't know. I know. I've seen 15 years of the world. My experience is my own. I know better than the other people." Sadly, today, a lot of teenagers, students, people in their 20s, people even younger, believe this to be true. My 15 years of experience is greater than your 50 because I am a star, or I'm the prize, or I'm this. And shut the hell up is my response to that. Because you need to give respect in order to get respect. And this is no way to get respect. But the evidence is also not on your side. Not everybody goes through what Malala went through, or what Ahmed Nawaz went through, or what some other well, they're professionals now, but young people went through, like difficult lives, which elevates them and pushes them forward. Most people haven't gone through that. So for you to say, "Well, in my 15 years, I've learned more about the world than you have in your 50, is bullshit. And it's evidence scientifically, it's also not true. Emotionally, it's also not true. So when your parents say to you, I think you should do this, and you respond with, "No, I know what's better for me. No, I'm this, no, I'm that," you're shooting yourself in the foot. I always say that I don't have mentors. I've had some really great professors. Um, in fact, I can think of two, three, four actually who've really influenced my life positively. I've also had a couple of employers who've who've, who've been very good with me, and I'm very grateful to them. But I only have two mentors in my life. One is called Her name is Nasreen Aamir. I call her Mama. she's my mother, and one is named Aamir Pasha, who I called Abu, who is my father. I've had two mentors my whole life. It's only my fault that I didn't recognize it in time, and I did, and I did now. So I'm grateful. Oh, somebody's writing something. Robert Berry. Robert Berry is a superstar, ladies and gents. Hi, Rob. Please find Robert Berry on LinkedIn. In particular, Robert is a superstar, and his mic, his voice, his ideas, his face, everything about Robert Berry is incredible, and he's a very good friend of mine. Although we've never met, we became friends through Shanae Moret and the LinkedIn influencers program and so on and so forth. Better late than never. Rob, Montreal is waiting for you, Rob, obviously, but I suppose I have to come down to America again just to see you. But yeah, Rob is a great person. He's a great friend of mine. Please do give him a follow. Please find him and follow his content. Your mind is about to be blown. But coming back to the topic of disagreeing with your parents, next time you're about to do so, take a moment. Try to remember that this person taught you how to walk, and you're using the same feet to walk out in them. This person taught you how to talk, and you're using the same words to ridicule them, to dismiss their point of view, to insult them and scream at them. This person taught you how to eat. This person spent their life, their blood, sweat, tears, so that you could go to school and get a better job than they had. And you're using that job to say, I have so much money, I don't need to give you anything. Try to put yourself in that perspective. But it's not just your parents, it's everyone else who has existed before you. If you start giving them some respect rather than thinking you're the shit, perhaps you might learn something in life. Perhaps you might grow into an actual complete human being rather than somebody who doesn't have any emotional or mental control and thinks that they are the center of the universe and everything revolves around them. Maybe grow up into an adult man or an adult woman or whatever gender you identify with. We're not getting into that argument right now. But whatever you think you are, become a mature adult and be mindful of who you are. Maybe you could do that by respecting points of view rather than saying, you don't know what you're talking about. I know everything because I'm 15 or I'm 20 or I'm 22 and I've been to Ibiza and I've danced in Argentina. Therefore, I know this. That's so much BS. And what's interesting is that when you get to my age, like 30, 35-ish, you'll start saying exactly what I say. And you're like, these 22-year-olds don't know anything. I was so stupid at 15. It always happens, and very rarely do people learn. And those who learn end up reaching greatness, if not financial or monetary or global, then internal. They always do that because they're able to self-reflect. So next time you're disagreeing with somebody who's older than you, remember what I'm saying. Remember, respect them, and respectfully agree and say, I don't see it, but I trust you. I trust your opinion, so I'll listen to it. I don't see it. If you could help me see it, I'd be very grateful, but I don't see it. But I'll still go with what you're saying because I have faith in you. What this does to the human heart is that it opens it up to chance, it opens it up to opportunities and possibilities, it opens it up to faith. Faith isn't just something you put in God, faith is something you put in human beings. And the best way to start is to put it in your parents and your grandparents and your uncles and aunts and your senior employers and people who share the same office space with you but have been there 20 years longer, and say, why don't you tell me about your life? How did it all start with you? Wow. You were here when there was no internet. Wow. How how does that work? Maybe start doing that. I have professors, I have supervisors. Every time I hit my mic, I have supervisors who have been around so long, who have been teaching before the internet existed. So they've been teaching for 30, 35 years at the school, at the business school. When I speak to them, they're like, oh, it's so easy today. You can simply Google things, you can do that. But in the 90s, we had to use these techniques. And I just marvel at them. I'm like, wow, I forget how easy my life is until I speak to you. I'm also an architect. I've spoken to some architects who tell me, oh, yeah, we used to practice in the 1960s. In the 1960s, they were building houses and buildings and public buildings, and they showed me their toolkit, their small measurement kits, their rulers, their pens and pencils and sharpeners and everything. They showed me all of that. And they said, yeah, it took us this amount of time to calculate this angle, and we had to draw all of this because we didn't have computers in the 60s. And you look at them, you're like, my life is so easy because of people like you. I am able to see farther because I stand on the shoulders of giants. This is Isaac Newton, because he was standing on the shoulders of Copernicus and Galileo and Archimedes or a few others. Because he was building upon what they had done, he was able to do better. It's the same here. You're not something special just because you were born and your father and mother spoiled you. You're not something special. You're just as human as the 8 billion others that exist. So perhaps try putting your ego in a bit of check. Try self-reflecting more. And the best way to do that is to give respect to your elders. And your immediate elders are your parents, but start with all of them and start with saying, I will give up my seat. I will concede in the argument. I will open doors for them. I will carry bags for them. I will try to be as helpful as I can, and see how it slowly starts dissolving the unnecessary parts of your ego and your pride. And it starts giving shape to actual self respect. That would be my advice. I think that's I wouldn't say the crux, but that's the overarching principle of this lesson that my mother taught us. See, I can talk about it for half an hour if I have to, but I'm going to stop right here. Respect your elders, and I hope these words mean something to whoever's listening, and you take some action on it. I promise you, you follow this for a year, and you will see how much your life changes and how much peace you can find. But I'll stop right here. Have a wonderful week ahead.